Hey guys, what's going on? Today we are taking an in-depth look at the Skorpyron fight on heroic and normal difficulties. Now there are a million guides out there to teach you how to do these encounters, but I want to bring you inside my mind as we look at the Skorpyron fight on heroic with my guild Exiled power, and we talk about each of the abilities, the mechanics, kind of our strategy for dealing with it, and hopefully can help you guys gain some confidence and get over some of the hurdles you may be facing. So let's take a look at what's going on in the fight right now. The first thing I want you to notice is that there's a new ad on the heroic difficulty. There's a red ad. This is a volatile scorpion. It does explode when it dies. So our guild in the beginning of our progression was taking that scorpion away from the raid to kill it. Now our gear is higher. You can keep that guy pretty dang close to the rest of the raid, and you really won't have any problems dealing with that explosion. A little bit extra healing, but nothing too worrisome. Obviously, if you've done this fight at all, you'll know that there's a few mechanics that you have to pay attention to. The first one and the most important one in the entire fight is the shockwave. Now the shockwave ability happens periodically throughout the fight, and the only way to prevent yourself from getting knocked back from the shockwave is to put yourself behind one of the crystal pillars that gets kind of knocked off from the boss as you fight him. And the key to that is just doing decent DPS, making sure that you're pumping enough DPS into the boss so that these pillars are falling off the boss. And as you can see, a lot of our team, myself specifically, I kind of hover around one of these. I'm playing a Beast Mastery Hunter, so there's no point in me really hanging out in the open away from one of these pillars. That's one of the core mechanics of the fight. And as you can just see, we just lusted. And the reason we just lusted is because of this exoskeleton vulnerability. You want to make sure that you have a lust going into the exoskeleton vulnerability, because the boss is taking more damage during this period. He's immobile, he doesn't cast any abilities, and he's taking an absurd amount of damage. So you want to make sure that you at least save your cooldowns, have cooldowns ready to go for that exoskeleton vulnerability. And as you can see there, we didn't have enough DPS in him, we didn't have enough crystals out on the platform, and as soon as the exoskeleton was over, he knocked us all back with shockwave. And at this point in our progression, this is not a problem for us, but you want to make sure that there's always something to rely on in terms of the fragments that are coming off the boss, making sure that you're always looking out for those and kind of getting your team focused around the idea that they're going to have to move to them during that shockwave or prior to that shockwave, positioning yourself in a position to be successful. And the other ability we haven't talked about yet is that Focus Blast, right? It's his main ability. He'll turn towards the raid and he'll do a line ability. It's about 5 characters width, I guess you could say, and he'll cast it towards the edge of the room. You just want to make sure you're away from him. On heroic and on mythic difficulty, the cast does seem to be quite a bit faster. I'm not sure if that's actually true or not, but you just want to be able to move. That's the key to that one, just moving and always keeping your head on a swivel. And I'll be honest guys, as a raid leader, I'm calling out people that I see are not handling that mechanic effectively. You have to keep people accountable for that mechanic, because it's so easy to just, shrug it off and, oh, I got hit once, oh, I got hit once, but that's going to happen week after week after week, and people will begin to lose focus on that ability. So if you set up the expectation that no, every focus blast needs to be dodged, then you're going to set your team up for success. And obviously the last thing that we need to talk about is these scorpions, right? Skorpyron will cast Call of the Scorpion. Scorpions will begin to kind of converge on the middle of the room. He'll cast this like shockwave ability that'll call the scorpions in from a certain section of the room. So if you're like me and you want to cast a binding shot to gain a proc from your Cephas, I'm looking to see where he's casting the scorpions, and I'm casting my binding shot and my slowing traps to help the tanks out. And as you can see, you're going to hit another exoskeleton phase, probably 2, maybe 3 if your DPS is a little bit slower, and you want to capitalize on those. And just like happened last time, a shockwave came out right after the exoskeleton ability. A person got knocked back. We have some extra scorpions. And the key here is, guys, to really make sure you're focusing the right DPS on the right targets. Now, there are classes that are just bound to be better at AoE. Memekins right now, Shadow Priest, for instance. Beast Mastery Hunters aren't terrible at it. Demon Hunters. So those classes can really use their cleave and their multi-target abilities to knock down a lot of the tricky mechanics of this fight, which is the scorpions. But the rest of you guys who may be more single target minded, you really need to find that balance of single target and multi-target for this one, because you want to be pumping enough DPS into the boss to keep the fight moving forward, but you also want to make sure you don't get overwhelmed. And that's really the entire fight in a nutshell from my perspective. As you can see here, it's a lot of rinse and repeat. hide for the shockwave, avoid the focus blast, kill the scorpions, and make sure your team is being held accountable to all of these mechanics. This is a pure and clean cut fight where Blizzard is combining 4 or 5 mechanics that we've seen before. We understand they're at their core function, core base level. They are very simple mechanics that just kind of stack on top of each other, and the difficulty ramps up because of the overlapping stacking nature of them. As the fight gets further on, your healers start running out of mana, you're a little bit more tapped in terms of resources, so you really just have to keep each other honest, plow through it. If you guys do have any questions about the Skorpyron fight, please leave me a comment below. I'd be more than happy to look at any logs, help you guys through any of the questions or concerns you may be having, and I hope this has been a little bit helpful in getting you through that tough fight, which is Skorpyron on a normal or heroic difficulty. My name is Codiak, raid leader for Exiled Power. We will see you next time.